Okay, so we'll call this meeting of the Finance Committee to order for the 1st of October, and we do have a quorum. So we'll continue on with that. We do not have the minutes of our last meeting because I didn't print. And that was my responsibility, not yours. So Jen gets absolved of that.
I guess we'll have to do two next.
Yeah, we'll do two. We'll do two at our next meeting. Tracy?
Sure. So I've got a few pieces of good news to report to you. We received notification from the Department of Revenue that our free cash has been approved. I don't know if you've already heard, but we've reached an all-time high for our community, a little over 2.8 million. $2,803,520. That is over our policy goal, in which we always want to keep a cushion of at least $1 million. But it does give us a little flexibility with respect to building projects that's coming up. We all know how tight that is. We still have town hall on the horizon, so we've got a couple other buildings. We've still got to do the bathroom renovation. We had hoped to get grant funding. It fell short. We only received about $40,000 in grant funding, so we're going to be going back to town meeting for the
It's on Plum Island, right?
Yeah, Plum Island, the one that we're going to make the permanent seasonal bathroom
$40,000
facility.
projected.
250. Yeah, so we're going to need some additional funding for that. And we still have some capital asset replacements and the likes to address, but it at least, you know, we have an alternative. We have some available funds, which is why we talk about the disciplined spending. We only using it for those one-time occurrences, because this is what you would need it for, things that we're going to be looking at in the near future. In addition, we had the ambulance enterprise fund free cash was certified. That was certified at $104,129. This is the fourth year in a row that the ambulance program has been fully self-sustaining. So it is functioning as a full and complete enterprise fund. We are also charging all of the indirect costs against the operation, the enterprise operation, so the costs.
So the
for
overhead
town
is
hall.
going against that?
Yep, town hall processing, payroll, you know, anything. All of the expenses that the town incurs on behalf of the enterprise fund are being charged against the enterprise. And they're still coming out with a positive balance, the goal being that we'd have enough to purchase, you know, new ambulances when needed.
So it's
through the
really
fund.
not a surplus, but it's just going to go into a reserve account for their capital needs.
Correct.
So we're budgeting for capital out of that.
Pretty much, yeah, yeah.
Somewhere along the smile.
And, you know, we all kind of brought Larry's name up the other night when we were talking about it, because he definitely brought that to our attention repeatedly, and I think, you know, I think they run a very tight ship, and wanted to be able to prove to him that this was able to be accomplished, and they have, so kudos to the fire chief for that. We were successful 2 weeks ago now. I had an opportunity to make a presentation to Standard & Poor's with the hopes of maintaining, a bond rating presentation, and the hopes of getting an upgrade. I don't know if you recall, but when I came here, we had negative free cash balances.
I do remember.
We have no reserves. I remember walking in and being like, oh, someone's made a mistake. But things were quite different. So with the implementation of quite a few policy documents, the Board of Selectmen adoption of those policy documents, our capital plan, our forecasting model, our road improvement program, financial goals and objectives policies. This rating has shown us that they are effective. We are now a AAA community. So with that, one thing that I don't think people necessarily equate it to, I mean, people who have the highest rate, communities that have the highest rating borrow money at the cheapest
Yes.
interest rates naturally. So with this upgrade, we are saving somewhere around $250,000 on our interest costs. So it's a win-win. I think the building committee had projected
250,000 per
over the life of the
life
debt
of the loan.
service, yep, the repayment. The building committee had projected a 4% interest rate. We came in at just over 2% on our borrowing costs. So that gives us a little bit more flexibility within their tight budget as well. So definitely great news. Everyone here was very proud. Yeah.
Did the interest expense go into the total project, or was that?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah, they
It
talked
does.
about that.
that does do change, okay.
We also had, I probably heard about our tax foreclosure auction, which was conducted last week. So we had a number of parcels that the town had taken ownership through the tax lien and foreclosure process. People
Mhm.
don't pay their taxes. It's a really cumbersome process, very lengthy,
It
takes
seemed like a lot of little pieces.
a lot
Yeah.
of
Corners.
small pieces that probably in all likelihood wouldn't have interest to anyone other than buyers.
Right.
So they had a little residual land value, but no significant value. There were two parcels, however, one on Plum Island on Independence Way, and the other one was off Main Street here in Byfield that were considered buildable lots. The one on Plum Island went for $420,000, and Byfield, I think, was $240,000. So we brought in $848,000.
Do you know how big that lot was?
Oh, small.
Just under an acre.
Yeah.
Under an
More
acre.
than even an acre. Yeah. It's a beautiful lot. It's nicely situated, but that definitely was beyond what we kind of were taking bets on how much we might bring in. And we brought in about $500,000 more than we had projected. So what will happen with that money is there are outstanding delinquencies on those properties to the tune of about $365,000. So that $365,000 will get closed out against the receivable balance, and the rest of it, when we close the books in 2020, will become a component of next year's free cash. So it'll take a
500
year.
grand?
Yep, about 500 grand, so.
So the
Bathroom
owners of record have no claim on,
Not any longer. After we foreclose, they have a full 12 months to reclaim the property, so we held the auction after the year had expired.
Okay.
So they have no claim any longer. Told you about the $40,000 we got for the project. And just in terms of an update, the streetlight conversion project, I know you may have noticed it, a couple of people have commented. We expect to save about 60 grand a year in annual energy costs once it's up and fully running. So by the time we were done, we got a couple of grants. We got a $27,000 grant from National Grid. We got a $26,000 grant from MAPC. So the project costs, which were around $130,000, were reduced to about 16 grand by the time we put all our grant
We
funding
saved 60.
together. Yeah,
60.
and we'll save 60.
60.
60.
Well, no, it went from 130 down to 16, you said?
By the time all of the grants were applied, it cost us about 16 grand.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. As it-
Savings great.
That's 3 months and we got a payback.
Right.
That's.
And they have like a 20-year lifespan.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, they look great.
Yeah.
I've been watching them go in.
There's one literally right in front of, right on the end of my street,
Okay.
on 49th Street on Plum Island.
Okay.
And it's like, it's daytime.
They're supposed to be able to
But
like
it's a different
have
kind of
greater
light.
control over the light distribution. It's
What
not
it
supposed
is-
to be as intrusive.
We looked at the one right at the end of Central Street, right across from our house. And the light no longer washes into the yards. It goes along the road. and it goes along the road in the pattern of the road. Really
Interesting.
is
I don't know
perfect.
So
that.
down by your house,
I don't know
I wanna see that.
When they first started going in, I noticed, I said, okay, I'm gonna ride around and see the differences.
Yeah.
I've been watching it for quite a while now, but they were coming, I saw them when they were coming down Middle Road
Okay.
toward Byfield, and then coming up our way, and we've replaced them all. I think the project is all done now.
We have a few left. There were some that had issues with tree limbs, and Grid has to come in and do some additional sheathing, so we've probably got about 26 left to go, but we're, for all intents and purposes.
Will it be all
Maybe
within the
more
town?
Yep.
I was gonna say, I don't think they're done.
It's amazing, one guy in that truck with the bucket on it by himself in 25 minutes. Put it up.
Unless, as they did in Arctics, was telling Tracy, went up there, he found a beehive. It was a lot more than 25 minutes.
Couldn't lower that thing fast enough, I'm sure.
He'd go up, spray.
You can't run away.
No, you cannot run away.
Yeah.
The dive out of the bucket is not healthy.
Oh, boy.
So, yeah, he was really careful, but he found that. But it took, it seemed to take him about half a day.
Wow.
The neighbors, people on Plum Island, anyway, I know on my street, so it's 49th, 47th, and 51st. Originally, it was, oh my, wait a minute, this is softer, but it's brighter. How is that?
It's supposed to
It's-
improve the visibility.
It really does.
But decrease the light trespass into the residences.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
This is like the best one.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
if people are happy, it's saving money, it's.
And most people don't.
No,
They
yes,
don't realize,
no.
a lot of people don't go out at night, so they don't know.
We had a couple where lights had been out and they hadn't been reported to us, and then when they put the new one in, people called and said, do we have to have the lights? And they were able to shield them, and we addressed that, so. But overall, it's been viewed positively,
It's a
so.
win-win, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You think? So, that's all I got for you, but.
That's
That's
all
it.
that's gone on.
That's all, and we'll be entering budget season soon. Oh, I did want to talk briefly about special town meeting. It's going to be, it's a little off schedule this year because the building committee had asked that we postpone it as long as possible so they could get the bids in and have time to deliberate before deciding whether or not they needed to go back to town meeting. So it's going to be on November 12th, thank you. It'll be November 12th. And we'll be starting to put together the warrant. There are 2 items. We're gonna need a capital planning committee meeting,
I've got one, which is the roller.
the roller and cruiser replacement. We're gonna have 2, I just got it
Okay.
yesterday.
Okay, I was
So
gonna
I'll
say, I
forward
don't have
that.
the cruiser.
Yeah, no, you don't, I just got it.
Okay. Yeah, it's a matter of, normally we get in the 1st of
November.
November for this stuff, but then we're not doing it till a regular annual town meeting.
Exactly.
So these are emergencies or,
No, I wouldn't call them emergencies.
Just-
No,
okay?
they're just for the November, where we're having a town meeting before November. Otherwise, it would have to wait until next July 1st. And I think
Okay.
that one was submitted quite some time ago, if I'm not mistaken.
July 12th.
July 12th, and those funds will close out at June 30th,
Okay,
because those are the fiscal year operating budget.
okay,
So,
all right. And I'll get the cruiser and then I'll set up CPC.
I'll send it to you tomorrow, yeah.
Okay.
All right, so I sent you all the amendments, proposed amendments for from the BCC for the Triton
Yes.
agreement.
Yes, you did.
So the BCC met a few weeks ago, I don't remember the exact date. And basically, they were going over these amendments come from a few years ago, these proposed amendments, and it seemed very much, having not been in the original negotiations, that they decided to go back and just make sure that everything that was proposed at that time is still what we want and what the towns want. Most of the changes in here went through somewhat easily, but there were a few that were fairly contentious, and they asked us to come back to the boards and get input for the next meeting, which is October 10th, on some of them. So if I flip through the ones that there was some disagreement on the question of whether to go to a 5-year rolling enrollment to determine costs. That was page.
And of course, do I have pages on here?
No, they're not.
How about sections?
No, no notation.
Like we have section numbers,
Yes, sorry about that.
so.
Yeah, so if you see like section 4, the school committee shall, that's not the one I'm looking at, but
Okay.
the school committee shall make a 5-year budgetary plan. That was well agreed upon.
The
The-
capital plan.
Right, so section 1, that was agreed upon easily, that the idea is not to cut programs with any one school, stepping up to cut them. I apologize, I should have gone back over this earlier.
Sorry, sorry.
So I believe it is in section 4D, where it starts to talk about that. And basically, right now, we're going year to year with the enrollment, as the enrollment changes happen.
Okay.
As the enrollment changes happen, it's year to year, which means that if there's a massive fluctuation in any one given year, it becomes more difficult to predict. The proposal was to make it through 5 years. That was tabled. The idea being that it just allowed towns to see less fluctuation in the budget.
Mhm.
Brian did say that they ran the numbers that would have been had they gone through that and saw very little actual change in what the numbers would have been over the last 5 years had that happened. So they wanted our input on that one, which was the most financial one specifically. There was a great deal of debate as to how someone should be replaced in the school committee if there's a resignation during the term. Right now, they're replaced by the board of selectmen of the town and the school committee members of the town. There's a proposal in here to make that include a school committee member from each town as part of that board to find a replacement to fill out the term. Rowley was very much against that. They felt like that was their, I believe they said it was their last, I'm gonna get the wording wrong. It was their last ways in which they had power over this.
Oh, okay. So they don't want anyone else voting on a representative from their town.
Right, and the reason for having it happen was that, of course, that representative that they would replace him would have been voted on by all 3 towns. Yeah, so that is in section 15.
Okay.
And Mike, was there any? Oh, Mike's gone. Those are the 2 most contentious issues. I will say that Newbury was more of the holdout on changing over anything having to do with changing the formula right now. Obviously, it's working well for us. But there did seem to be some disagreement within the members of the, within the board of selectmen members in there, with some saying we've got to step up and be willing to talk changes, and some saying that it's working for us and we've got to build a town hall, so.
I think the Board of Selectmen did take a vote, it was some time ago, I can't remember when. And the majority of the board members voted against changing the
Yes.
assessment methodology.
Mhm.
But that was probably, a year or two ago.
Right, and, the goal was for all of us to go back to all of the representative committees. So that whatever we thought worked for that, we can represent the board there.
Quick question on, when they went back and looked at the two ways of calculating the assessment, because we have the historical numbers, and so we could do that. What were the differences? What was the magnitude of the changes, and in which direction?
He did not give the specific changes, he just said that they were.
That would have been really helpful.
Yeah, well, I believe we've had them in the past, because I remember having a
They were-
discussion with him in this room.
$500, I mean, they were
Yeah.
small variances.
Yeah. So, with that kind of variance, do we really have much of a problem?
In doing it?
Oh, either way, we're not gonna change, if we're not changing more than about $500.
That's
And
the
a
way it played out
multi-million-
just these couple of years. It
But
has
we-
the potential to swing in much larger amounts.
Okay, because we have the ability to go back quite a few years and look at this and say, okay, in history for the last 10 years, we can show where the swings had gone and to whom and how they would go under the new plan. And that would be a very helpful piece of information to have.
I can ask Brian to see if he's got specific numbers.
Yeah,
And
that
how
would,
far
that
back?
would be really good, because we've got the numbers going back that way.
Oh, sure.
I did, well, so, but it's out, so I can still work with it.
But as far as that goes, without numbers, we meet again before I go back. Just, what are the feelings here?
As far as the.
As far as those proposed changes?
I certainly, speaking for myself, I can see where somebody would want to say, if it's a Newbury person who we're replacing, then the people in Newbury should do the replacing, not the people in Rowley or the people in Salisbury.
Right.
So I would agree with that. As far as the formulation is concerned, which is our biggest one, that one is, what section was that in?
Section 4,
Section
4D.
4D, okay. One more page.
And basically what we're told is that, with the two-step process there, it's the second step that's, it would require changing both to see any true change.
Mm-hmm. So if I read this correctly, there is step one, which is everybody gets a
Minimum contribution,
minimum contribution.
which is a factor of community income and equalized valuation. So property value and community incomes are the two biggest factor that the state uses in coming up with the minimum contribution for your community.
Okay.
And there has been conversation, I think Narissa Wellen has been very active meeting and discussing all of Triton's issues with our legislators, and it seems like, and we've been having these conversations for no less than 25 years, but it seems
Yeah.
like she's actually getting some movement.
She was able to
She's
get
a
an
force.
audience with
Yeah,
the Senate
she's a
leadership.
force. Yep, she's done a great job.
I haven't gone through the breakdown of the bills out there yet.
I don't know if that's the
Yeah,
fix
fine.
we're looking for, but she's certainly got their attention, so kudos to her.
So, we can reduce this to an equation.
The two-step method? Yes, that's the state's methodology. So first step is minimum contribution, second step is per pupil distribution.
So, in the first step is the function of income and property value total,
It's a
average.
very complicated formula, I
Okay,
wouldn't even
okay,
begin to.
so we have complicated formula one.
We don't determine the calculations, the
Formula.
state does that, yeah,
But who,
yeah.
somebody must have the formula.
Oh, yeah, you can get it from the state,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
As I recall it,
And,
we talked about
and
this.
right now, we are just on one or just on two?
Just on one.
We're on one plus the
It-
year by year on,
We do it annually,
right.
our calculation is.
And so what we're talking about is taking step two, we're not changing step one.
Right.
And doing a 5-year rolling average. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's why it's such a minimal change, is that it's only the second part of the
Of the
formula.
two-step method.
Okay.
And we have the ability to change the first part. This is the fallback. If we cannot agree on a particular formula, this is what will always be, we'll always fall back to. Which brings up the question of, if we change it, is the district that, is the town that is least benefited by it going to just push for the fallback every time? But
Yes.
Probably.
Yes.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem like it.
It,
And, you know, we're getting relief now because we've gotten to our 80% of full foundation funding, and I'm not gonna pretend I understand all of the formula, but that's why we're in the position that we're finally able to breathe. You know, a few short years ago, this wasn't the position we
Right.
were in.
Right.
it's my thought that in that position, we hold some of the cards, and that if there was ever an opportunity to break that cycle, we have the ability to do it right now. And that it would very likely potentially benefit us in the long run, at least in terms of being able to more accurately predict what's going on in the future, but at our short term disadvantage. I don't think that argument is going to get very far.
That's a tough one.
the variance in,
Excuse me.
in the first
Oh, my
factor, the variance in the first factor is how much? Is there an annual variance in the first factor? Does it get, how often does it get recalculated?
Every year,
Every year?
every year.
Okay. It's difficult to
It
give
is
you
difficult.
a feedback to say, oh, yeah.
That-
I mean,
that's-
usually for budgeting, I would say a rolling average makes a lot of sense. But for budgeting, if you were doing a rolling average, you would want to do a rolling average for factors 1 and 2.
Which we don't have.
But we now don't have that ability.
We do have the ability to change the agreement, but the political ability might be,
Yeah.
as you were just saying, a very difficult sell. Anyway, the simple fact of the matter is that any change right now is probably not going to be to our benefit in the rate. I know, I'm just one voice there, I'm sure much of this will come from the selectmen as well, but,
Yep. I would really, from the FinCom point of view, would love to see historically to go back and give us, you know, a 10-year retrospective. What would it be? We've got the numbers, put them together under scenario 1 and scenario 2.
I'll email those to Brian, and then, as far as disseminating those without violating open meeting law.
Oh, it's just data.
Just data, so until we have any discussion, we're fine.
Yep.
Alright, I will get those out to you.
Thank you. Anything else for questions on this one? Okay.
Sorry, but it's
Squeaky chair, yes.
Sure.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay, so,
And once I get that piece from you, I'll set up a CBC meeting, we'll get that
That'd be great.
through, and then we will have one more meeting before the special town meeting. Oh. Well, our meeting would fall on election day. Do we have elections? No, okay.
Not until
So-
March.
Okay.
So it won't be election day.
No, it won't be election day. Some places it's going to be election day, not for us. So, 5th of November would be our next meeting.
and I'm assuming that's when we'll start to see the numbers that will be going for, before the SCAM for
Yep.
police session.
I'm open.
I'll try to get them out to you sooner. It's just,
Okay.
it's kind of coming down to the
Crunch.
wire. Yeah, it's gonna be
Yep.
a little bit last minute.
And,
It has to be posted 2 weeks before, so you'll have it by then.
yep. And I'll get a, okay, I'm gonna get I think I can get a CPC meeting set up for the 17th. So that will get done, and then we'll have that to come back to this committee before the special town meeting. Okay,
That's the 12th, you said?
Some consecutive weeks.
Yep, back to back.
mhm,
And the only other thing I have for your consideration is a reserve fund transfer request.
I have that in my packet here.
Looking for a reserve fund transfer in the amount of $6,050 to be transferred to the library salaries and wages account. The purpose is to keep the assistant library director from taking a position that she's offered in another community. The director has notified us that she will be retiring. We would like the assistant director to take the director's position, so we're gonna be grooming her. Right now, the assistant position has a wage range of $21.40 to $33.15. She's not even at the midpoint, so we offered her $24.73 to stay. She has agreed to that if we can get the funding from the reserve fund.
Okay, so, the motion on the table is to approve the addition of $6,050 to be transferred to library salary and wages from our reserve fund. I would entertain a motion. Second? Okay. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes, okay? So we've got voting, 4 ayes, 0 nays, 0 abstains.
No, Jean retired, Erin wears that to the director's position.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're trying to get Erin this.
Yes, oh, yes.
She's done a really nice job.
Yeah.
This goes to you.
Yes, thank you.
And our next meeting date is the 5th. Oh, we have this to do. This is the assigning of signatory power. This gives me the ability to,
So like when bills come up, like I think we had, like some dues or something that needed
Yep.
to be, he can, when he's in the office, if he swings by, he can just
I
sign
can
it
sign
without
it.
having to do the vote and everybody sign.
He just has to make a report to the committee at their next meting, letting
That
them
it's
know
signed.
what you've executed, yeah.
Sounds reasonable.
maybe a report from Mexico.
He said no.
I don't think.
Nobody's mad about it.
Okay, so I would entertain a motion to approve me for having the signatory power.
So moved.
Second.
Okay? All those in favor? And I think we all have to sign this.
Yeah.
I'm not-
Have a sign so he can sign. You don't have to sign.
Just can't try.
I thought it was gonna be a Walter or something.
If anybody does any more.
Marshall already signed?
Yeah.
It's consistent.
I'll take
Make a
it.
copy.
I like the lawyer's signatures that they have on checks. Yeah, that could be
We'll just take the original signing.
Yeah, good handwriting is the hardest one to forge.
It is, no one can forge my signature. They've
I
tried.
believe it. I believe it. Okay. I don't see any citizens here to have any concerns. Nothing has come as far as communications are concerned that I know of. We've done the next meeting. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
All right.